Welcome back to another edition of the Night Report podcast. I'm your co-host, Mike Broadbent. Joining me once again is my co-host, Richie Schneiderite. Richie, this is an instant-ish reaction edition. Of course, we had some news break after we hit publish yesterday, which is standard. It's par for the course. So Cliff Omoruyi, Jesus, I can never say his name, announced he is entering the NBA draft, but he's doing it without an agent. So that means he retains his eligibility with the NCAA. I think this was a pretty clear, easy thing to telegraph. But what are you hearing regarding Cliff?
So obviously he's going to test the NBA waters. I expect him to fully get a bunch of NBA draft workouts and all that good stuff. Don't expect him to get a combine invite because I don't think he's one of the top, I think it's only 60 players that get invited there, maybe less. I don't expect him to get that. I do think he'll get some feedback from scouts. They're going to say, hey, mostly probably the same thing we've been saying for quite some time now. Hey, like you got to work on your post-up game. Hey, you got to get some post moves. Hey, you can't shoot. Other than that, like you're pretty athletic. I would put you in the elite category of athleticism. Yep. You can dunk from just about anywhere within like a 5-foot range of the rim. Maybe even I can even extend that a little more too. But yeah, I mean he is what he is at this point. I don't think it's going to be anything crazy that he's going to get feedback-wise, but I do think that some might try to sell him on they're going to tell you straight up, you're probably not a draft pick. I think I can almost guarantee like 100% he will not be a draft pick. But some of them might say, hey, like if you want to do the Ron Harper Jr. route, and we can get you in the G League real quick and work with you, and you could be in the league, and they'll try to sell you on the idea of being in the league in a year or two, which is very possible. If he figures out a post moves in a post game, and fixes his defense a little bit and boxes out a little more, like, holy shit, like he could be great. But it's going to be interesting. It sounds like he'll get that feedback, then come back home and then kind of figure it out with his guardian, with his family and all that. I still think he comes back. It sounds like it's probably going to come back. He's technically, the crazy part is, and I had to rewrite this a couple times in my article, and I'm like, yeah, I mean, Cliff has the option to come back if he wants to for next year or two. And I was like,
yeah, he's got 2 years of eligibility.
He's got 2 years left, technically. Like, I don't think he stays 2, but
no. I mean, Ron had that extra year this year too. He could have come back for, but it was pretty obvious. Like, you can only enter the NBA draft and return to college once. So if you're going to enter to test the waters, it's probably a good indication that you're either going or this is your last year. You can't go twice. So
exactly. So I think he ends up coming back, and he'll end up leaving the year after this. But yeah, I don't think like I said, he's not a draftable player right now, and that's fine. He's still a very good Big Ten player. He's got to work on his post game. That's the biggest thing in your offensive skill set. He does, or lack thereof. He needs to figure it out. He's missing gimmies. He's missing like dunks and lay-ins, and it's like little things like that. And once he figures out a couple post moves, the sky's the limit. It's just until he does that, you're kind of sitting here status quo, and that's why you're running an offense through a guy that's through that guy, and that's kind of why the offense struggled as well. But yeah, I think when you surround him with more shooters and surround him with a better team next year, I actually think next year's team might be better suited for him, to be honest.
Yeah, like if you, I know people have asked about the comparisons to the Sanogo kid on UConn about Cliff, which I don't see at all. But the reason UConn and teams like Creighton, they have so much success with their big men is because they've surrounded them with really, really good shooters on the outside. So you can't double a big if you have a 38-point three-point shooter on, high volume in the corner. Like, you have to respect that. And Rutgers didn't really have that last year. So teams were willing to just, guard Cam with their best player and then double Cliff anytime you got the ball. And that really just kind of tied both Rutgers' hands behind its back because Cliff was getting a lot of easy dump downs when we had Ron and Gio because those are two offensive players you had to take account for on every offensive set. Cliff had a lot more double teams this year. He had a lot more attention towards him, and it showed because he wasn't able to get those easy rim running dunks anymore. He wasn't able to get those easy high pick and roll paths to the basket. Like, they really keyed in on Cliff, and he struggled, which NBA teams are going to see in his tape this year. So it's even a bigger knock against him. I do agree. Cliff needs to improve massively if he's going to be an NBA prospect. Now, is that at Rutgers? Is that in the G League? Is that overseas? I don't know. I do think ultimately, though, that he ends up coming back. I know that there's a an overseas trip this summer that seemed to be heavily focused on trying to get Cliff NIL money. Or at least
forgot about that.
That's the perception of it. Sounds like they're going to be going to Africa for because every college basketball program is allowed to go on one overseas trip every 4 years. So I believe the last overseas trip was to Spain, right?
Spain, Portugal. I think it was a couple other countries too, and they just bounced around. And they do exhibitions, which is kind of cool. And we get the stats, which is the best part. So they're gonna play some real competition.
Yeah, I think that was the 1920 season, like the 2019-2020 season.
Yes, I think it was right before COVID. So yeah,
it'd be great if they like televised all those like on anywhere, just YouTube or whatever. It'd be a great extra 10. I think they get 10 practices, right, overseas.
Something like that. Yeah, it's almost like a spring practice kind of schedule.
Yeah. Yep. So I don't know. I think Cliff ultimately gets some great feedback from the NBA evaluators, and he'll probably learn a few things going through the process as well. But I also think he comes back, and that's not from any inside information, just kind of like playing it out logically. Yeah,
no, totally agree with you. He'll get that feedback. He'll come back and sit down, and I think a decision will happen kind of relatively quickly, and they'll kind of just go from there. I know Rutgers is still recruiting big men in the portal, but I think that's more of the fact that you need two dominant big men. And we're going back to UConn and Sinago. They've kind of proved that you need two dominant big men. Like throughout the season, Donovan Clingan, their backup, has been almost superseding Sinago. Like he's been just as good, if not better. I think his ceiling's a lot higher than Sinago's, and that's saying something considering Sinago was one of the top big men in the country entering this season. So, I think you need a guy behind Cliff. I think Woolfolk's not there yet, but I think he has the potential to get there. So I think that's kind of why you're seeing them recruit these big men. It's going to be a hard sell on these guys. It's the portal, and they want minutes, they want money, they want everything, and you kind of just go from there.
Yeah, and just in looking at like the number of players who go undrafted and play in the NBA, it's actually like rose a lot in the last few decades. Like about 20% of all NBA players last year were undrafted. Mm-hmm. Like that includes two-way guys, so it's not like full-time players, but you can get to the NBA if you're undrafted, and Cliff right now would be undrafted. So that's not to say, that's to say that, just because if a guy goes undrafted, look at Ron, he's on a two-way deal. He's had his cup of coffee in the NBA. I expect he'll get more minutes next year as he continues to improve. But just because you don't go drafted, that's not a death knell for you in the NBA anymore as much as it used to be.
Yeah, no, there's so many undrafted guys that end up making it, like you said. Trying to think of like the biggest one on the top of my head. There's got to be like Dylan Brooks drafted. I feel like he wasn't drafted for some reason.
No, he was drafted, but a guy like Fred VanVleet wasn't drafted.
JJ Barea, Jose Calderon, Brad Miller, Udonis Haslam, who's been still in the league somehow. John Starks for you Knicks fans. Ben Wallace. Like there's a lot of guys that just went undrafted and they're super successful.
Naz Reid, Rutgers or New Jersey's own, Lou Dortz, TJ McConnell, Christian Wood.
I did not
Seth
see Naz Reid carving out a role for an NBA. I did not see that one coming.
I didn't expect he was that good of a shooter. Yeah. His recruitment was real weird. LSU came in the last minute. I mean, you could connect the dots in your own head how that ended up working out. But Alex Caruso's undrafted, Dorian Finney-Smith, Jermichael Green, Robert Covington, Gary Payton Jr. The list goes on and on. There's a lot of really talented and impactful players in the NBA who aren't drafted.
So it's not the craziest thing to go undrafted, but I do think that he could go he'll probably, I don't think he gets drafted, to be honest, at all, even if unless he has a crazy jump from this year to next year. But I think the G League's in his future. So I think you go there and you kind of just work on your game, do what most guys do in the G League. And look at Ron. Ron's putting up crazy numbers, and he like, it's still like it's tough to get to that league. There's only so many spots, and it's the world's smallest professional league. Like it's a tough league to get into, but we'll see what happens one day. I do think he comes back, and then next year you kind of go from there, and maybe you just sign with the G League and go from that route and see what happens.
Yeah, and I do think they would try and add a big man regardless of if Cliff comes back or not. And I think that's obvious based on how many big men they're reaching out to. because you need a guy who can actually score and give Cliff some time off. I don't think we would start two bigs at once, or even play significant minutes with two bigs at once.
That idea's got to die. I hate that everyone keeps talking about the Twin Towers. We need the Twin Towers. It's not happening. Like that idea's been dead for years. This is the 1999
Spurs. Like David Robinson and Tim Duncan don't work on the same court anymore.
It's brutal to listen to, and it's like, I get it. Like, you guys want to get the tallest team possible, the lengthiest team possible. That's not how it works. It's speed and shooting, and shooting more than anything at this point.
Also length more than height too.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing that you kind of do is you need a backup big. And I'm going to go back to this UConn team. Like, Sanago is one of the best big men in the country, top 5. I don't even think I'm reaching there. I would say top 5 is about legit. No. Guess how many minutes per game he plays? 26. Sorry, I answered before you could answer. But Klingen comes in for 15 minutes a game, and that's kind of what you need. Rutgers doesn't have a guy that can come, like a Klingen, that can come in. Yeah, cool. Woolfolk's not the worst, but he's also not the best either. You need someone legit that can come in, give him some significant time off. Cliff played, I think you're trying to find the minutes right here. Cliff played 30. They're over 30, and he played over 30 in multiple games. I remember a couple of games recently, he was playing 35, 34, and it's like, the man doesn't get a break. He needs a break.
Yep. And you saw that by the end of the season, he was totally worn down. There was a lot of putbacks that he normally would dunk that he wasn't able to get the same lift on.
Mm-hmm.
He had no legs left, and maybe that was because of some kind of soft tissue injury as well that they were hiding or trying to rehab throughout the season. But he did not have the same legs that he had in November that he did in February. That's for sure.
Yeah. So that's all I got to say on that.
All right, let's move on to something we normally don't talk about. Let's talk about wrestling. There's a lot going on right now with the wrestling program in terms of the transfer portal and some decommitments. So this morning, literally right before we went on, Rutgers lost a class of 2024 commit in Matt Heinrich from Southern Regional.
Yes.
He just won his first state title, I believe, at 152 pounds. He had a bit of a breakout season. Like I said, this is his first state title. He beat the number one kid in the state from Blair early in the season. Then he had a great run through Atlantic City to win his first state title. And then we also had Boone McDermott, I believe, last night, the heavyweight for Rutgers, announced that he is entering the portal. Now, there's a lot of other things seemingly behind the scenes going on as well.
Ooh.
So let's just first talk about those. Let's first talk about Matt Heinrich and Boone McDermott, then we'll get into the additional behind the scenes stuff.
All right, which one do you want me to roast first?
Start with Matt Heinrich.
All right, Matt Heinrich, dude, control your uncle, dude. Get him off Twitter. You see this guy? It's just it seems like Soriano's dad all over again. It's all caps. It's Rutgers loses, spelt loses wrong. Another NJ State champ commit for lack of proper communication and ignorance. This is all caps, mind you. Matt Heinrich, ... comma. I don't know why you did that. Is only a junior at Southern Regional High School. Let's go, Rutgers, ... I don't know what's with the commas going on here. Have a fucking clue. ! Never, number one, that you never start the sentence with and. Come on. I'm not the best, with journalism, or I should be, but you don't start a sentence with and. I don't know why you put so many commas. You didn't need more than one, but you put 3. I tend to do the period thing where it's at the end of a thing I'm going to continue, but 3 commas, that's just weird. But Matt Heinrich decommitted. Obviously the family's not happy about it. But he was a 150-pound state champ, I believe, for New Jersey this year. It's not the worst thing in the world because I think, as you mentioned to me, Alex Nini's also 150, and he's a commit as well. And
I don't think he's 150.
I might be wrong. It might be a little less. But they're pursuing a bunch of other guys, so I don't really see this as too much of a loss per se. But I mean, honestly, just based on his uncle's reaction, I'm kind of sitting here saying hey, goody, you avoided that one. Good job.
Yeah. Yep.
He's moving on. It sounds like might have some NIL relations to it too. Everyone wants a bag in these days, and I don't blame him. You go get yours. Why not? So whatever. He lost a commit in state. It's He's a state champ. He had a great year. Don't get me wrong, but what are you going to do?
Yeah, unfortunate to lose a commitment, but it does sound like there may be reinforcements on the horizon there. Again, we'll talk about that in a little bit.
Yes.
Boone McDermott, though, he was the Rutgers heavyweight for the last 2 seasons. He came in as a junior college transfer. I think he was a place winner at the 2022 national tournament. What are you hearing about what happened with Boone McDermott?
So Boone's technically got 1 year left. His first season he spent at Iowa Western Central Community College, something like that. I don't know what Iowa Western is. It's a JUCO. I think it's just Iowa Western Community College, but he won the national title there. So there was some pretty high expectations coming in for him. Mm-hmm. And he was just average. I mean, he wasn't great. He finished, he didn't do anything last year. I think he qualified for the NCAAs last year, but he didn't do much. Finished 8th in the Big Ten this year and qualified for NCAAs again. Didn't really do much. Sounds like it's bag chasing day for most of these guys. Like you got NIL just walking around for most of these guys, and some schools have a lot, some schools don't have any, some schools have a little. Like it all varies depending on the program and the school and NIL, how much people are donating, et cetera, et cetera. Sounds like he's gone, but I don't think that's a big issue because it sounds like Rutgers has a kid coming to campus on Monday who's a pretty damn good wrestler. So,
another heavyweight.
Yes, we can already post. I mean, Lex posted about it, so I guess we could talk about it, and so did other people. I don't know how the hell I'm supposed to pronounce his name, but I'm going to give it a try. No, I'm giving it a try. The good old college try. Fucked up already. Yaroslav Slavakovsky. I feel like that's Russian, right? It's got to be Russian.
That was actually better than normal. That was a decent pronunciation. I don't know how it's pronounced, but you sounded good. You sounded confident about it.
Yeah, I was very confident. It's Russian? Like, it's right?
He's from Belarus. He's from Belarus.
Close enough, you know?
Yep.
But yeah, he's Harvard transfer heavyweight. He was a 6th seed in NCAAs. He just missed the podium this year. He lost a 1-0 decision to Hilger. At Davidson in the blood round, which would have put him on the podium. But it's interesting. So he's on the do not contact list in the transfer portal, which is like, hey, don't talk to me. Basically, I'll do my own recruitment, which is fine. That's perfectly fine. It sounds like he's visiting Rutgers on Monday. Also, Michigan's after him as well, so that's going to be tough to keep him away from there. But the fact that he's coming to campus is huge. I think you obviously you try to lock him up immediately, but if you can get him on board, that's a pretty significant heavyweight that Rutgers hasn't had in quite some time.
Yeah, it'd be huge because I think Rutgers has struggled at heavyweight, for as long as I've been. Yeah, as long as I've been a Rutgers wrestling fan. So obviously, getting a NCAA place winner, 6th seed from last year, be huge because the Big Ten's just loaded at every weight class, so you need to have a hammer at every weight, essentially. And if you don't, it shows.
Yeah. So,
hearing anything else out of the portal for Rutgers wrestling?
Yes. So Shane Griffith, everyone's favorite New Jersey kid that's on the West Coast at Stanford, the minute that program was not shutting down, everyone freaked out, and they're like, whoa, wait, where's he going? And it's like, all right, hold on, relax. They're still alive as a program for now. So he's deciding if he wants to wrestle again next year. He has another year left. It's not the craziest idea, according to Lex, that he could potentially come home. I'm not saying he will come home. Something to keep an eye on. There's a rumor of another New Jersey kid at a Big Ten school that might hit the portal soon too. Something to keep an eye on as well. It sounds like Rutgers has a pretty good shot at landing at least one, maybe 2 or 3 in the portal, which is interesting too because they do have 9 starters returning. I think Heilman's the only one that graduates technically. So I had my hopes up this season for a really good dual match team, and it didn't really pan out the way I thought it would. I'm starting to get my hopes up again for next season. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, they just pulled you back in. Shane Griffiths would be a massive addition. I think he was a Bergen Catholic kid, 2-time NCAA champion. He was famous for wearing the black singlet to the NCAA championships a few years ago when Stanford had announced they were getting rid of wrestling, and obviously they brought it back. this would be, adding a Nick Sirianno, Anthony Ashnalt level wrestler to the program for 1 year, and 65's been a hole in the lineup for a while. So that would instantly probably take us from a top 25 level team to a top 10 level team.
Yeah,
I don't think that's an exaggeration.
Then you could put a nice little another year on that banner that just hangs there with it, dude. I don't know who made that banner. I get it. Like, you want the top 10 finish, but like as a banner, you got to make the numbers bigger. Like, you can't just have like Rutgers top 10 finishes, 2020 or 2021, whatever it was. Yep. It's just sitting there and that's it. Like, nothing, and a whole giant empty space. And it's like, dude, you got to do something there. Like, take it down for now.
Yeah. And then there's, if you've paid attention to the boards of Twitter, there's been talks of a couple Pennsylvania Hammers committing to Rutgers. We only got one. Sounds like that second one. The second one's still coming though.
Yes.
What can you tell us about that?
The first one, I don't know if I would have considered a hammer. Good commit. Not going to hate on him. Solid. Mm-hmm. Second one, that is a hammer. If I should have brought a hammer out for today, that would have been funny. But yeah, no, something with the Hammers and Jersey Mike's Arena teams, Pikel pounding nails, and there's a whole metaphor going on there somewhere. But yeah, no, this kid, if it sounds like he's kind of like silently committed, and it'll go public relatively soon, I'm told. But yeah, no, this is a very good commitment for Rutgers wrestling, and again, every time I'm out, they drag me back in, and here I am thinking like, oh shit, here we go. Rutgers wrestling's back, and we'll have to just wait and see.
And to just add a little bit more of a tease, if we're talking about like a rivals ranking for this kid, from the 5.1 ranking to the 6.1, 6.1 being a 5-star, 6.0 to 5.8 being a 4-star, where would you rank this kid that's that's silently committed to Rutgers right now?
I think our 5-stars stop at like 15, 18. I think he's like right on the other side. Is it
usually it's like the top 22 to 30 by the end of the rankings.
By the end of the rankings, yeah. So yeah, no, that's a 5-star then. That would be a 5-star commit.
So this is massive. That's all we can really say on that. But stay tuned for, if you're a wrestling fan, that's some additional news that will be dropping soon.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you wanted to hit on before we sign off here?
Let's see. Wrestling. We did wrestling. Basketball portal, something to keep an eye on. I know we talked about John Hugley yesterday. He's taking an official visit to Georgia Tech early next week, whatever the 26th is. I think that's Monday, 27th. Yeah, it's Monday. Who's the other guy? Someone else is taking a visit somewhere. I know we talked about Nicholas Timberlake. He is one of the top targets. It sounds like UNC is pushing extremely hard for him. Mm-hmm. That's going to be a tough one to beat out. I think it's just they're just going to keep looking in the portal and just keep looking for different names. And new guys enter every day, like I said. Baseball has got a big series this weekend up in Stores. What do you call it? UConn versus Rutgers. That's huge for the resume.
Yeah.
And I kind of hope Pikel takes a look at what Steve Owens did and says, like, all right, maybe we should do that. Like, Steve Owens looked at his schedule and said, damn, we got screwed from the NCAA tournament. Watch this. I'm going to schedule every single team I can possible. So
yeah, UConn's arguably the best baseball program in the Northeast. They regularly send guys to the Major League Baseball. They're regularly up a postseason team, so huge to get them on the schedule. To take one of 3 in a weekend series from UConn would be huge. So
yeah, they've already beat teams like they beat Ohio State twice, or they won a series against Ohio State. FAU is a pretty good program. They beat Hawaii, San Diego State. I think technically you can watch on UConn Plus. I don't know exactly how that works because, as the publisher of the UConn website, I should probably know that, but I don't know how that works. Speaking of UConn, I need to brag a little bit. Boy, we went from number 47 yesterday in our bracket pool on the night report on Yahoo Sports to up to 11th. And I noticed all the 10 people ahead of me don't have UConn winning. If UConn wins, I know basketball. You guys don't know shit.
Yeah, UConn looks unstoppable right now. I always love how the tournament brackets shake out, because I think on one end of the bracket it's like a 9-3 Elite Eight matchup. The other end is like a 4-9 matchup, or maybe not 4-9. That's 4-3.
4-3. Yeah.
Yeah. Who do you think's, obviously you got your
I got you.
Who do you think's going to make the Final Four?
Out of the Final Four, I have 3 left. So I mean, hear me out: Texas, UConn, and Alabama, and then I had Duke, but that backfired. Mm-hmm. Kansas State's in the Elite Eight. Who do they play? They're going to play either.
They play FAU.
Oh, FAU. Yeah, they should beat FAU. But I don't know. FAU's weird. Like, I was talking to someone yesterday because Dusty May, everyone likes to mention as soon as a job opens up, it's like Dusty May. I've been told Dusty May loves Boca, which I mean,
how could you not, though?
You ever been to Boca? Like,
yeah,
I haven't, but I've seen pictures, and I wouldn't leave. It's like it's in a good job. They pay well. Like, they get good coaches for a reason. They've had Lane Kiffin. They had another coach. Didn't they have Tom Herman? Or they have Tom Herman?
Tom Herman's the current football coach. Yeah, I know Howard Schnellenbacher, the former Miami coach, was actually the first football coach at Florida Atlantic. He founded the program. So there's a lot of – they've had a lot of really prestigious coaches there for such a small program.
Charlie Partridge, who's that we've mentioned in the past. Carl Pelini. Yeah, I mean, Willie Taggart, like they have money for a future American Athletic Athletic Conference mate or conference. Well, I don't even know what the word I'm thinking of, but they're joining the American Conference next year, so it's going to be interesting. They're basically replacing UCF, I believe, because I think UCF's going Big 12. So conference realignment's fun. Other than that, I mean, do we want to touch on football before Tuesday, or do we want to wait till next week?
Let's wait till next week.
All right. Well, Tuesday, obviously, is first day of practice. We'll be talking to Greg and several players. I don't know who. I'm sure we'll probably get – we're not going to get quarterbacks because quarterbacks are Thursday with Kirk Soraka, so that's going to be a good one too. I don't expect them to say much. I don't expect anyone to really say much. And it might be a quiet spring, but there's definitely some interesting previews. We can go take our best guesses at a depth chart if we really wanted to next week.
Yeah, I think the only saving grace might be is if Kirk gets to speak again, because Kirk was very, I wouldn't say – it wasn't candid, but he was very wordy the last time he spoke. He just expounded on every question, which is nice considering Greg doesn't really give you guys much, and Kirk went and did a soliloquy on like every single question that you guys had for him. So. Yeah.
So like I said, he'll speak Thursday. Greg will speak Tuesday. So next Thursday, if you're not we got to get last thing before we're signing off. I know I keep delaying this. Guys, I'm not asking for much. I'm just asking for a little bit of time. Go to the podcast that you're on, the podcasting app. See that little rate thing that says like rate 1 through 5 stars? Just put the 5-star mark. Like, it's not hard. Or put 10 if you can do 10. But yeah, it's not that hard. I think like we did the math. It's like 10% of our viewership actually rates us. I'm not asking for a whole lot. There's just a couple buttons you got to hit. I think it's 2 buttons. You're listening to us anyway. I'm probably boring you at this point, but just hit the 5-star review button on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, on Google, I don't even know what other podcasting app there is, but just hit the 5-star. It's not that hard. And then if you're on YouTube, just hit subscribe. And then if you're bored, go on our YouTube comments. There's some people in there. It's fun. Yeah, throw some elbows in the YouTube comments. That's always fun. And you're hiding behind an anonymous name anyway, so people aren't going to know who you are if you're Ski Vermont or whatever. Oh, who? Yeah, who? All right, guys. Well, thanks again for tuning in. Richie said the spiel, so I don't got anything more for you. But once again, stay tuned to your podcast feed because, news breaks all the time, and we try and cover it as quickly as possible. So for me and Richie, this has been another edition of the Night Report Podcast. Signing off.